How can we feed the world in times of rising food prices when demand for safe food has increased by 50% over the last 20 years and competition grows between producing food, feed and biomass? Talk of so-called peak phenomena is growing. This is the theory that we will soon reach our production limit in oil, water, grain and fish. How can we maintain food security in this environment? And how can we ensure that what comes from pasture to plate is properly produced, handled and stored? A rise in global food prices has most seriously affected the poor. Matters are made worse by an increase in energy prices. Purchasing power has gone down, and the 16% of Europeans living below the poverty threshold are the most vulnerable. One of the aims of the Commission's proposal, the so-called health check on the Common Agricultural Policy, is to lift restrictions on farmers to help them to meet growing demand for food. Food security and food safety were the main issues on the last day of the epp-ed study days in Paris. Group Chairman Joseph Daul outlined the next questions to follow this event.
I wanted to have a fundamental debate, and I think this is what we've achieved today. At the end of the meeting there are questions, because after this debate and its analysis, it's evident that the food and agricultural debate has evolved into a debate about finances. The next question be, what are the structures to transform agriculture and food production which we will need in Europe? And through these structures, what will be the measures to achieve our goals? The last question concerning these men and women in the agricultural industry, working on the ground, who deal in these methods, will be what will the future hold for them, and what will be the financial structure?
Michel Barnier, French Minister of Agriculture and Fisheries, said that the current food situation was not, in fact, all bad news.
It's not necessarily bad news that we have to produce more and better food, because for those who produce, the farmers, who are fundamental to society and carry out a work which is both difficult and necessary, it's a perspective which has not always been acknowledged. In many countries in recent years, the attitude was to reduce production, reduce prices, and therefore farmers face grave long-term problems. Today, agriculture is coming back to the top of the agenda, to the heart of society, where, in my opinion, it has always been. We need to produce better and more food to relieve food shortages and to guarantee food security. 30 years from now, with the population expected to increase to 9 billion, production must increase accordingly. So this is a challenge which will prove harder for some than for others, because loans are more expensive for some, like, for example, cattle farmers who work with primary materials. So the attitude is there, and we as Europeans, which I've expressed to members of the EPP, which is my party, we should prepare ourselves to preserve our own production capacity. We are a large producing continent, a territorial model which is supported by the CAP, and this should continue. And at the same time, we should open the playing field, notably towards African countries, whom we should help to rebuild their agricultural economies.
Consumer confidence in the safety of food products has been shaken in recent years by food health crises. The European Union responded by implementing a comprehensive strategy to allay people's concerns about food safety. This strategy combines high standards for food, animal health and welfare, and plant health. They apply both to food produced inside the EU and food imports. We talked to John Boas, epp-ed's coordinator in the Committee on Environment, Public Health and Food Safety.
We set up the EFSA, the Food Safety Authority, very carefully worded title that, to ensure that we had a scientific, objective, independent body, not to manage risk but to assess it, and then let the politicians and others manage the risk as a consequence. That's been part of it. Then we've moved on to things like proper food labelling. That's a debate we're still having on how we can guide consumers as to what is in food, particularly processed food. And I think we're looking also for assurances of certainty in terminology we use, whether it's the sort of traffic light recommended daily allowance issue, or whether it's terms like organic and fair trade, and the new one, of course, is going to be sustainable.
An in-depth analysis of the reasons behind food price increases, adjusting the Common Agricultural Policy, supporting agricultural research and promoting an open trade policy could help meet the challenge of rising food prices. Rigorous control systems will ensure that from field to fork, European food continues to be safe. For more information on our policies, log on to our website, epp-ed.eu.